All right, so this weekend we got two movies that recently came out in theaters. We got Monkey Man, starring Dev Patel, directed by Dev Patel, written by Dev Patel, produced by Dev Patel. Honestly, what Dev Patel did with that film is astonishing, and I can't wait to talk about that. We also got the first Omen, a prequel to the 1976 classic, The Omen, which was directed by Richard Donner and was about the Antichrist and all the biblical stuff around that. So I'm going to go ahead and review both of them right now in this video. First, we're going to start off with Dev Patel's Monkey Man, which has been in the news a lot lately. It was originally supposed to go to Netflix, and Netflix just didn't want to release it. So Jordan Peele came in, he watched the movie, he fell in love with it, and he decided to release it. He bought it with his company Monkey Paw, convinced Universal to release it in theaters, and now it's getting this big release, and there's been a lot of traction behind it, and rightfully so, because I really respect Dev Patel's craft and his ingenuity behind the camera. While I also respect the amount of passion that he put into this, I respect that, that he went out there and he wanted to make an action movie, he wanted to start an action movie. Nobody was casting him in these type of films, so he said, fuck it, I'm gonna make my own movie. And I respect that craft. And his passion and his love of action filmmaking shows within the film, because Monkey Man is a really fun action thriller. There's plenty of thrills, there's plenty of violence, the choreography is really great, and you can tell Dev Patel put his all into the movie. His physicality and his performance, and even the stories you've heard about how behind the scenes he broke multiple bones making this movie, you know that he cares about it, this is a passion project, and you know that he has put his all into it. In the movie Monkey Man, Dev Patel plays the titular Monkey Man. As a child, his mother was killed by an evil police officer and a spiritual guru who were big in India at the time. He grew up fighting in underground fights, getting money where he can, and finally he's come back for revenge. So yeah, for the most part, it's a pretty standard revenge flick. Someone did a wrong to Dev Patel's character as a kid, he grows up, he learns how to fight, and he gets revenge. What makes this movie unique is its setting. This is an American-produced movie, but it's completely set in India, and that's one thing I really appreciate about this movie. This is a revenge thriller set in a foreign country with foreign politics and foreign social issues. Now, I'm not too knowledgeable about Indian politics and their government and the rights and wrongs that their government are doing, so I'm not going to speak on any of that. But what I can speak on is Dev Patel's passion about tackling that head on and making a film just criticizing the Indian social caste system that they currently have. So I wouldn't say this is the most in-depth political critique movie I've ever seen. I'm sure there's a lot more details and depth to the Indian politics and the Indian social system that I'm completely unaware of, and this film probably could have delved into more. But I just respect the fact that Dev Patel had the balls to make a movie completely about politics that I'm not even aware of, and to further educate people, but also give a really entertaining action thriller. And yeah, the action in this movie is absolutely crazy. It's violent, it's visceral. A lot of people in my theater were just squirming and super uncomfortable with some of the violence that happened within this movie, and that was a ton of fun. I love the way the movie is choreographed. I loved Dev Patel's physicality that he put into the movie, but one thing I wish the movie did do better was shoot it in a better style. Now, for the most part, the action is visible and it's clear, it's easy to see, but the movie shoots a lot of the action in these close-ups and shaky cam, kind of similar to the Jason Bourne movies, that style of shooting action. And for some parts it's effective. It's claustrophobic, it's tight, it feels like you can't breathe, and then in other moments it feels like you can't really tell what's going on. There's a couple moments in the action where I just didn't know who was throwing which punch, what was going on, and then it did finally come together and I was able to tell what was going on in the action. But it could have used a couple more wide shots in order to give the action more clarity. And the few wide shots that do come in the action feels like a breath of fresh air, and I just wish they held on those wide shots a lot more or cut back to other angles that gave more clarity to the action. I will also say the movie has some plot issues as well as some pacing issues. The pacing doesn't always feel the greatest. It doesn't always flow as smooth as it could. And there are also some side characters that they show up in the beginning of the movie. You think they're going to do something important later on, or they're going to add some sort of value to the themes of the movie and the plot of the movie. And then in the end, they really don't do much, or you completely forget they're in the movie until they pop up out of nowhere. Like, oh yeah, that person was in the movie. I thought they were going to be set up to be like a cool sidekick or something. And they really just don't amount to much. I think Monkey Man shows a lot of promise in Dev Patel as a filmmaker, as a director. I don't know if he plans to continue making action movies. I hope he does, because I think this movie shows a lot of potential, and he does have a lot of room to grow. But I think if he continues down this path and he continues to make these visceral action thrillers that just make people squirm in the theaters, I think he can be a really great action director and filmmaker. Now let's go ahead and talk about the first Omen. Now, I saw the trailers for the first Omen in theaters whenever I'd go see a movie. I thought it looked interesting, but it kind of reminded me of the same vibe I got with the Exorcist Believer trailers, where I thought those looked interesting. But then I saw the actual movie and I said, oh wow, this is hot garbage. The first Omen is a really interesting prequel to the original Omen movie. Now, the first Omen tells the story of how Damien was born and all the conspiracies that went into creating Damien as the Antichrist back in the original film. Now, honestly, you tell me that premise, it sounds like a stupid cash grab. It sounds like a studio trying to grab as much as they can from an existing property so they can make as much money with the recognizable name. But I will say, I think the filmmakers here do a really good job at adding a lot of depth to the lore and the world of the Omen films. That really surprised me. I really enjoyed its themes about fear-mongering within religion. Now, it doesn't go super into depth with it as it could, but I appreciate that the ideas are there and that they try to do something interesting with the idea of the Antichrist and how it kind of plays a certain role in the world that we're in. And I think it's definitely a very relevant story. You know, the original Omen movie takes place in the 70s and the time it was created, so this film as well takes place in the 1970s. So there's a lot of rebellion within the culture. They're rebelling against authority, they're rebelling against religion, and of course there's this fear factor of trying to reel people back into the Catholic Church. And that's when you get the best horror, when it's trying to make a commentary on a real fear that people have, a fear of authority or a fear of losing power, which I think this movie explores pretty well. I think the director of this film, Akasha Stevenson, is definitely a director to look out for. She's previously done TV shows like Legion or Brand New Cherry Flavor, both of which delve into the horror realm. And I think her imagery within this film and the way she builds up scares and atmosphere is really promising, and I'd love to see what she does with an original idea or another passion project of hers. I gotta say, I even think that this film is not only better than the original 1976 movie, but also a lot scarier. And that's all due to Akasha Stevenson's filmmaking and the way she builds her atmosphere and dread. One thing I will say is that within the first 5 minutes, you're going to predict the big revelation that comes within the movie. They don't do a very good job of hiding it or building suspense around it. And so you're going to go into the movie immediately knowing what the end revelation is going to be. They make it too obvious, and I wish they kind of hid that more within the details of the story. But even with that gripe that I have with the film, I still think it's a really well-made horror film with some interesting commentary around fear-mongering and religion. I think it's something definitely worth watching, and if Akasha Stevenson wants to continue making Omen films, or if another filmmaker wants to come in and build off of what this movie did, I wouldn't complain. So there you have it, my thoughts on both Monkey Man and First Omen. Both pretty solid movies. It's a really great weekend to go out and watch movies. And so make sure you get your ass in the theater. Make sure you watch these on the big screen. Make sure you watch these with a crowd, because that's going to be a lot of fun. Both movies, I think, were really fun to watch with a crowd of people. If you've seen these movies, let me know what you think of them in the comments below. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you guys next time. Peace out.